We moved some things around. We did spring cleaning because it's Easter. Yeah, see, we got this can of air. You spray this on dust. I found some Gatorade. It's probably old. We don't need to keep that. We have another important guest. That's why I'm cleaning. Steve Wonder here from GetRubix.com, and today we have a very, very important guest on the podcast. You know how I've been going crazy over the Intune cookbook. I'm super excited about it, and I mean, Andrew Taylor, the author of the Intune cookbook, is here today on the podcast. So really, nothing else to say for that. I guess if you haven't bought the book yet, I guess grab it. There's a link below. But you know, Andrew came on. We had a great conversation, and think you're gonna get a kick out of it. No, I found a lot of the eggs. They hit them pretty well, but I did okay.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Before I was in IT, like in 2010, I switched careers. I was in like the music business, putting a mic on me. Everyone's like, now you know. I'm like, yeah, I know how this works. And I'm like, I'm so used to it. And then I forget it's because of that old life.
Yes, yeah. The rest of us geeks aren't not so much. Yeah. Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm a freelance Intune consultant from England in the northeast, and I work daily with Intune, Entra, Azure AD, Azure Virtual Desktop, all the fun bits. And I've recently written a book, which I think we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I have it. Yeah, it's I mean, obviously I followed your blog. Was book's great. I guess so how long have you been working with Intune specifically?
Oh, there's a question. Probably about at least 5 years, maybe more. I mean, I've been in EUC since SCCM was called SMS, and we image machines were Ghost, and yeah, has a CD with the key written on the front. So it's olden days. But Intune 5-6 years, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's most of it, right? It hasn't been, I guess, viable longer than that. Because I remember when I started looking at it originally when Windows 10 came out, it was just moving from Silverlight, and it was very difficult. And
that portal wasn't great.
No, and I remember trying to be like very forward thinking, and because I came from a mobility space, so wanting everyone to join to Azure at the time and this, but it was a very different conversation. What I like about the book and what's fun for me and kind of fits with the stuff I like to show is a lot of graph stuff. You don't just walk through the GUI. I do find though that a lot of admins don't. A small percentage know about the graph and are comfortable working with it. I guess it's intimidating. I guess, do you find the same, and do you encourage folks to get familiar with that?
Yeah, I mean, if I've got an idea, if you've got to do something more than once, automate it so you don't have to manually do it. There are other books which taught you through the GUI, so I thought there's no point reinventing the wheel, so let's try and teach people how to automate things. And I mean, it's better because it's quicker, you don't make mistakes, and you can tell someone's going to take you 3 days and it takes you 3 minutes. So it's, everyone wins, really.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's what I like, because I think that's what makes Intune so great, is when you look beyond the GUI of it, and when you start, making it your own. And I always have that argument when people, oh, well, SCCM this and that. I'm like, yeah, but SCCM didn't do that out of the box. You had to build that, like, to bend it to your will almost. And I feel like the graph is that answer for Intune when I think about it.
Yeah, people, they go on about SCCM, but they forget how much effort is involved when you set it up. They just remember the golden days of, I built it, it's working nicely, rather than the 6 days troubleshooting a task sequence because one of your apps isn't installing, and an upgrade that kills your SQL server and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I'm rebuilding it in my lab right now, and I'm remembering how much it hurts. And it's just a small, I mean, it's just one distribution point. It's it hurts a lot. That's cool. What are your, as far as one thing I like to ask everybody who's been working in the space is, there was, a lot of the, what I would call like the middle ground tools like Autopilot, Hybrid Join, and co-management. First of all, do you prefer, if you can, to take folks to pure cloud native?
Yes,
okay.
But not unless they're a very small company, you can't just go, right, come on, let's rebuild 10,000 machines. We're going cloud native tomorrow.
Right.
So there's the hybrid stepping stone, just not hybrid autopilot.
Right. So like I usually think about hybrid as being, because sometimes I say I don't like autopilot hybrid join, and people confuse that with I don't like hybrid join.
Yeah, exactly. Autopilot hybrid will be a horrible experience, but just switching on a GPO and hybrid joining your devices is absolutely fine.
Yes.
And the best way of getting into Intune, when you need to rebuild a machine, then it goes cloud or new machines, anything like that. But for your existing ones, nobody's going to thank you if you just go and rebuild all their devices.
Right. No. That's exactly. Yeah. And and there's really no need to, because once it's in Intune, you have visibility to it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Just block your GPOs at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you have good experience with that conflict resolution policy in Intune? I hear
MDM wins over GPO.
Yeah,
just block inheritance on-prem.
Block inheritance on-prem.
Yeah, don't fight it. Just block the inheritance and let Intune handle it all.
Yeah, I think sometimes folks get confused. Like they think that will be the silver bullet. The MDM wins over GPO, but that's not really the case. So that's a good idea.
Especially if the settings are slightly different. It will win, but not if the CSP behind it's different. Right. Then you're going to have bugs.
Yeah, a lot of them don't match up. They do the same thing, but they don't match up in the registry one for one.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. I guess what do you like for companies going cloud? Because I'm doing a lot of work now, and with Microsoft, I'm trying to promote more cloud native. I mean, I have for a few years, but now I feel like Microsoft's there, so it's a little easier, like, to not fight against. So, I guess what are still some of the biggest struggles you see when working with customers trying to get to cloud native?
There's the three big ones. There's file shares, printing, and wireless. That's your three big blockers.
Yeah.
File shares, now we've got Cloud Trust is a lot easier. I don't know if you did the old Key Trust model with your on-prem servers. That was a pain. So on-prem file shares, less of an issue now. Printing shouldn't exist in 2024. But
that's what I say.
We are where we are. So that's a PowerShell fudge underneath normally.
Yeah.
Especially a print nightmare. It's a disaster.
Yeah. And then you said the last one was wireless.
Yeah.
Is that
Cloud PKI and SkepMan will help on that front, but you've still got your legacy wireless where it needs an on-prem device object to authenticate,
like Radius stuff.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult, I'm finding. I guess it works. Someone said it works with Radius, but that's if you're doing Radius as a service, I believe.
Yeah, it's a battle.
I'm always fighting with everyone in this. You would think if I told people what I do, it's like in IT, but I feel like I'm always in a street war with people.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, if you go to the bigger companies, it just gets worse.
Well, I think that's interesting because they still see policy and endpoint as two different things. So it's hard just to get people to come together and understand. Is my part. I've worked with folks and trying to go cloud native, and 7 months into a project, someone will go, "What are you doing with the domain?" No, they have to be on the domain. So it's, it's frustrating sometimes, but
it is. And then they wheel out some legacy app from 1990 written in 16-bit code that you've got to somehow get working.
Yeah, I did a cloud native thing, and I was very adamant. I mean, I'm cloud biased. I try to go to the cloud, and I called out that app where some folks say, "Oh, well, I have this one app. It's an independent software vendor. It only works." I said, "That's not sustainable to run your business on." And I was happy because I got my first internet hater from that. Someone came out and said, "No, that's yes, some businesses need to." And I'm thinking, well, yeah, but I understand there's a need now, but it doesn't make sense going forward for that to be your business. I would imagine you don't want to have that in the future.
Yeah, you don't want to be waiting for some vendor to release an update where the person who wrote it has probably died by now. Nobody knows how it works.
Exactly right. It's that's not a good practice, and it happens a lot. But I think that's like not so much. Don't let that be a reason to not go cloud native. Let's fix that problem because it's not good anyway. It exposes a lot trying to go to cloud native. I find it exposes a lot of holes.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at migrating GPOs and you find, block MSN Messenger from booting on startup and stuff. You think, hang on, I haven't seen that since Windows XP. Why is that in there?
Yeah. How do you feel about the because obviously the policy analytics was there for a very long time before the migrate button. How do you feel about the migrate button?
I don't like it unless your GPOs have been very carefully maintained. You're just moving an issue from one place to another, and nobody looks after GPOs. You put in a fix for some antivirus issue you had 10 years ago, and you never remove it. It just sits there forever. So GPOs are clunky and messy, and this is your chance to clean them up.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's the thing, right? It was almost like it's like be careful what you wish for. It's like because for the longest time, I remember typing the ADMXs out by hand when importing. And then it's like, okay, the analytics tool was good. It showed people where the modern policy was. But then with the migrate button, I think it went the other way. And folks are like, great, I could just migrate everything. I'm like,
yeah,
no, you have a nice, clean environment. Why do you want to bring all that garbage?
Yeah, and then you put in a couple of policies on top. You've got conflicts you've got to find. It's just not. And I worry that Intune will be like that in 10 years' time where everyone's just piled in policies and don't look after them.
I was looking at, if you want to talk about the Intune deploy tool, so I that came to my attention and I think it's amazing. So if you want to talk about it a little bit, I don't know.
Yeah. So that's an automated tool I've written. It's a web form. You put in your details. It's literally a background image and an email address. That's all it needs, and you can toggle conditional access, and it goes away and it builds an Intune environment for you. So it sets all your MDM scopes, it creates your groups, puts your update rings in, builds all of your. It's a secure baseline, so it won't do your drive mappings and the custom policies on top, but it will build a blanket environment. It will do your background image, even if you're on Pro, because I'm doing it via script, not via policies, because they're enterprise only. And put all your baselines in, so you have a secure environment where you just drop people in the group and away you go.
Yeah, that's great. Because I think there needs to be a landing zone, right, for Intune. And I think it's hard to, and I've seen some folks do it manually, or they come in and they have a protocol, and it's it definitely, it wasn't set up with the care of the PC in mind. It's set up very like, here's a restriction, here's unenrolled, and it's not, I would say, enough. Obviously you're going to build off of all of them, but I don't think it's enough to start. So when I saw this, I was really excited. So I think this is great, and people can build on top of it. So yeah, gotcha.
And it takes 20 minutes instead of, even if it was, I've done many environments, it still takes 3-4 days to build it by scratch with the GUI.
If you're if folks are cooperating with you,
it could be weeks otherwise. This one's 20 minutes and away you go.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I think that's great. And at least I think what's good about it too is it's a good start to, it's good for if you want to deploy it and then build right on top of it, or if you want to deploy it and get a feel for it first. Because I always tell folks who have so many questions about CloudJoin and autopilot and Intune, say, well, if you're entitled to licensing, which luckily most folks are, put a device in and start experiencing it. And I think the hardest part would be to get over that, because if they don't do the initial setup right, there's going to be issues. So I think that's where, if they're using the deploy tool, they'll have a nice, clean, accessible environment to just
and it's self-contained rather than I haven't just configured everything for all devices, because you don't know who's going to be in an Intune environment. So it's all self-contained. You can deploy it and you don't have to worry about crippling your entire fleet.
That's a good point. I run into, especially with large organizations, when we're setting up Intune, there's still the mindset of prod and dev environments. My issue, first of all, is I've never seen an organization keep up on dev to where it's like prod. They're so different. It's like you shouldn't even have a dev environment. But more so is that I don't think that's required in the cloud native space, because of things like what you're talking about, where you can containerize it to a group and scope. So I think that's really important for folks to understand.
There's always scope for a dev environment if you want to get if you want to try new features when they come out, for example, that you can't limit.
Tenant-wide features and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to. Well, today is it's April Fool's Day, but it's the Intune Copilot is available now, and I was going to turn it on, but they wanted $3,000, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, I turned mine on this morning. It's now live.
That's good.
Yeah, they do want a lot of money.
Yeah, they want so. I have to see. I think if we get 3 more subscribers, no, I'm joking. It's like a GoFundMe for Copilot. I think that's the really interesting thing about, I haven't been very excited about Copilot and AI and Windows. I mean, I think it's interesting, but for me, it's helpful for writing copy and stuff. But when I saw the GitHub Copilot, I was very excited, and now with the Intune, so now I am excited.
I've had the GitHub one since it was in preview, and it is useful. I mean, I wouldn't write a script with it, but if you're doing repetitive tasks, it'll do that bit for you.
That's what I said. I have a colleague I work with, and he uses it, and it's great. I think mine's dumber than his. His is much smarter because he has, with me, I can't tell it what I want to do because I don't think it knows all the I do a lot with the Windows client, obviously, so it doesn't know all the registry locations, but it does learn what you're doing. So when you're just writing blocks, it's like someone writing with you. So that's what I like it for too. So it's good to hear that because
it's better at the older stuff.
Yes.
So if you're doing HTML, PHP, it's quite good at that. If you try and get it to do some Intune PowerShell stuff, it just makes up.
It's a good liar too, because it writes things, and I believe it. I used to believe it. I'd be like, oh, I didn't know about that call, and then it turns out it's not real. But
then you run it, it says it doesn't exist, and then you spend 10 minutes googling it trying to work out which module you haven't installed, and it turns out it's just made it up.
It's entertaining. It's worth, between the writing it does, the entertainment value, to me, it's worth it. So I like it a lot. That's another thing. I try to encourage everyone to get familiar with PowerShell and the graph. The other thing about your tool I really liked, or actually no, I'm shifting real quick to the Intune backup. I know there's some desired state configuration in there as far as drift, and I've been looking at, that's one of those things. I've been looking at DSC for Intune for so long, but it's one of those things where it's like, when I get 5 minutes I look at it, but I haven't had 5 consistent minutes in 7 years. So that's awesome, because I think that's where it needs to go for DSC.
Because there's some that work at the client level. That doesn't help as much when you're at the Intune level, because that could be a client issue rather than a policy issue.
Right. I think, I think for, I almost look at, I still call it proactive remediation. I look at remediation almost like client drift management to a degree. But something for the tenant, I think, is super important, because so many times I'll spend a very long time setting up a tenant for someone, and they play with it and it doesn't work the way it did. So being able to monitor that.
Especially if you're MSPs, because they're managing the tenant, but ultimately the customer owns the tenant, so you can't stop them doing stuff.
Yes.
All you can do is revert it when they do it, but
right,
it's working out what they've changed is the tricky bit.
Right.
You got policy that has 300 settings and they change one, and suddenly things stop working. You've got to try and work out how to revert it, whereas this way there's a button that will do it for you.
Cool. And this allows folks to take control of that and swing that back. Because I started doing this migration thing, I now have to deal with multiple tenants at a time. And that's very tricky because, migrating the device is one thing. And that was the part that pleased me. When I first migrated the device, I was like, wow, the device is gone and it's in B. I'm done. And I was so happy with myself that I didn't consider everything. It's like I fixed a kitchen and the building burned down and I'm all happy.
Yours is the harder bit, I think. The device is the harder bit. Well,
that's what it was. It took so long to do. I was thrilled. I was like, okay, does it exist in A? No, it's in B. It's not autopilot. It's there. I was like, great. I'll see you later. And I didn't consider everything else around it. Are you speaking anywhere coming up that you want to?
I'm speaking at the Paris Endpoint Management Summit, which is in 2 weeks, I think. 2 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yes, I'll be at that one.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. I have an engineer on my team, Lisa. She said, please let me go to that. We need to. So tell them it's imperative. We need to go to Paris. Any last thoughts you want to share? Besides, obviously, I've been telling everyone get the book. There's
buy a copy.
Buy a copy. It's great. Hey, it's like, and it's funny. This is my camera one. I keep it here because it's pristine, but the real one's disgusting because there's post-its and it's ripped up and everything, but it's a good reference book. So yeah, buy a copy.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
Buy more than one. Have a spare in case you rip it up.
I'm telling you, that's what I've been saying to people. Buy many copies. I think you can buy it below. I got to see if they put the link in. I really appreciate you making the time to come on. It was awesome talking to you.
It's been great talking to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
5, 4, 3.